Put that package back, Mr. Dalton. Linda Park's voice cut across the apartment lobby sharp enough to stop the elevator doors from closing. I was standing beside the package room shelf with a small box tucked under my left arm and a torn carrier slip pinched between two fingers. I had not even made it 3 steps from the mail lockers. The lobby was busy that evening. Mrs. Price's walker was parked near the bench. Ron Turner was sorting through his mail. 2 women from the 4th floor had just come in carrying grocery bags. Everybody heard Linda. She came out from behind the office counter with her keys still in her hand. She was not shouting, but she did not have to. Her face had that tight, tired look people get when they have already decided what they are looking at. "That is not your package," she said. I looked down at the box. The label was turned against my coat, and I kept it that way. A person's name did not need to become lobby business. "I know," I said. That made it worse. Ron stopped pretending to read his mail. Linda took another step toward me. "We have had too many missing packages in this building. I have tenants calling the office every day. Corporate is asking questions." Her voice lowered, but the lobby had gone quiet enough for everyone to hear it. "People are starting to think we have a package thief. Art." The word landed harder than I expected. Not because she yelled it. She didn't. That almost made it worse. She said it like a tired manager naming a problem on a checklist. I felt it move through the lobby, the quick glances, the silence, the way one of the women shifted her grocery bag to the other hand and looked at the shelf behind me, like maybe I had cleaned it out. I lifted the torn slip. "Linda, this was on the floor by the locker." She glanced at it, but not long enough to see what I was trying to show her. "Art, please do not make this harder than it needs to be. I had fixed washing machines for 30 years. Dryers, dishwashers, old refrigerators with parts nobody made anymore. When something was wrong, I looked for the small thing that did not match. That torn slip was the small thing. The corner was ripped clean off. One number was printed. Another had been written by hand. I tapped the paper once with my thumb. "Look at this," I said. Linda's eyes stayed on the box. Behind her, more doors opened. More faces appeared. I swallowed, keeping my voice low. "That package was never supposed to be mine." For a second, I thought Linda might look at the slip. She didn't. Her eyes stayed on the box under my arm, and the silence in the lobby grew wider around us. I could hear the elevator humming behind me, stuck open because somebody inside had pressed the button and decided not to step out. "Art," Linda said, softer now, "I need you to put it back on the shelf. It doesn't belong on that shelf." Ron Turner gave a little sound through his nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite a cough. It was the kind of sound people make when they want everyone to know they have an opinion without being brave enough to say it clean. Linda heard it too. Her mouth tightened. "Then you should have come to the office," she said. "You don't handle other tenants' deliveries yourself." I held the slip up between us. I was coming to the office. The torn paper shook once in my hand, and I hated that. Not because I was scared, because old hands give people permission to think old minds are just as unsteady. Linda glanced over her shoulder at the office door, then back at the people watching. I could see the calculation on her face. She had complaints piling up. Missing boxes, angry calls. Someone from corporate wanting numbers, not excuses. And there I was, standing in the middle of all of it with a package that was not mine. One of the women with grocery bags whispered, "Is that why the lockers have been messed up?" Nobody answered her, but the question stayed in the air. I turned the package slightly so no one could read the label. "I'm not trying to embarrass anybody." Linda stepped closer and lowered her voice, though everyone still heard. "Then don't make me do this in front of everyone." That stung, because I was not the one who had made it public. I looked down at the slip again. The torn corner. The printed number. The handwritten correction beside it. Small things, ordinary things, the kind everybody throws away until the day they matter. "Just check this first," I said. Linda reached for the package, not the slip. I let her take the box, but I did not let go of the paper. A few feet away, Mrs. Price lowered her eyes to her walker handles. Ron finally said what the room had been waiting for. I mean, I've seen him by those lockers plenty of times. The elevator doors slid open again, and two more neighbors stepped out into the quiet. By the time I reached for the torn slip, nobody was looking at it anymore. Ethan came by after supper with a paper bag from the sandwich shop downstairs and the careful face people wear when they already know bad news. He set the bag on my kitchen table but did not sit down right away. "Grandpa, Mrs." Klein texted Mom. I kept my hands in the sink, rinsing the same coffee cup twice. That did not take long. She said there was some kind of scene in the lobby. There was no scene. I put the cup in the rack. There was a misunderstanding with a package. Ethan looked toward my coat hanging on the chair. The torn carrier slip was still folded in the breast pocket, one white corner showing like a little flag. He saw it. I saw him see it. "Grandpa," he said quietly, "were you moving somebody's package?" I turned from the sink. The way he asked hurt more than Linda's voice in the lobby. Linda was a manager under pressure. Ethan was my grandson. "I was trying to get it where it belonged," I said. He nodded too quickly. I know you wouldn't take anything. That's not what I'm saying." But it was close enough. He pulled out a chair and sat. "It's just, sometimes these locker systems are confusing." And there are a lot of numbers. Maybe you thought you saw one thing and it was another. I dried my hands slowly on the dish towel. For a moment, I almost told him to leave the sandwich and go home. Not because I was angry, exactly. Because when family starts explaining your own mind to you, the room gets very small. Instead, I walked past him to the narrow drawer beside the stove. Ethan leaned forward. "Grandpa, I'm not accusing you." "No," I said. "You're trying not to." That stopped him. I opened the drawer and moved aside batteries, twist ties, a screwdriver, and the spare knob from my old dryer. Underneath was a plain gray folder, the kind that came in packs of 20 at the office store. On the tab, in my own block letters, were 2 words: unit corrections. Ethan's eyes went to the label, then back to me. "What is that?" I brought the folder to the table and laid it between us. I did not open it right away. I let him look at the words until he understood there was more here than an old man getting mixed up. Then I reached into my coat pocket and unfolded the torn carrier slip. I placed it on top of the folder, smoothing the torn edge with 2 fingers. Ethan stared at the torn slip like it might change shape if he looked long enough. The paper was nothing special. Thin white stock, one corner missing, a crease down the middle from where I had folded it into my pocket. But the mistake was right there. I tapped the printed unit number with my finger, then the handwritten correction beside it. "That is what I was trying to show Linda." Ethan leaned closer. "So it was marked one way first, then changed?" "That is what it looked like." "You didn't write this?" "No." He picked up the slip by the edges, careful now, like it was not trash anymore. That small change in him gave me the first clean breath I had taken since the lobby. I opened the gray folder. Inside were loose sheets from a yellow legal pad, folded straight down the middle. Not fancy, not official. Just my handwriting, dark pencil mostly, because pencil does not smear when your hands are damp from carrying groceries in the rain. Ethan read the first line, then the second. "These are all unit numbers?" "Pairs that keep getting mixed up," I said. The list was simple. 1 column for the number printed on a slip or notice. 1 column for where the package actually seemed to belong. A few dates. A few short notes like "left by lockers" or "wrong shelf again." Ethan turned a page. There were more than he expected. He did not say anything for a few seconds. He just kept reading, his shoulders slowly moving forward until both elbows were on the table. I pointed to one line near the bottom. "That one happened twice in the same week." He looked up. "And nobody fixed it? I told the office when I saw it. Linda?" "Sometimes Linda. Sometimes whoever was at the desk." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice low. "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked past him toward the apartment window, where the lobby lights reflected faintly in the glass. Because it didn't feel like a family emergency. It felt like a building problem. He turned another page. This one had small arrows drawn between numbers, the way I used to mark wiring diagrams when a washer kept tripping the breaker. Follow the mistake. Find where it starts. Do not blame the machine until you check the connection. Ethan touched one penciled arrow. You were tracking it. I was noticing it. That's not the same thing. It is when nobody asked me to. He sat back then, holding the torn slip over the open folder. His voice came out softer. Grandpa, how long has this been happening? I did not answer Ethan right away. Instead, I reached back into the gray folder and pulled out a thinner stack, clipped with a black binder clip that had lost one silver handle. The top page had been folded and unfolded so many times the crease was soft as cloth. Ethan looked at it. What's this? Permission, he frowned, then pulled the page closer. I put my palm over the lower half before he could read too much. Not the details. Just the part that matters, he nodded, slower this time. The form was simple. A resident's permission for me to move a misdelivered package only to the office shelf or the correct apartment door. No opening anything, no reading labels out loud, no keeping anything in my apartment. Ethan read the first few lines, then looked up. They signed these? Some did. How many? Enough. That made him sit back. I lifted the top page and showed him the next one, then the next. Each had the same basic wording, the same careful boundary. Help only when a package was clearly misdelivered. Leave it with the office when possible. Knock once if the resident could not easily come downstairs. Ethan rubbed both hands over his face. Grandpa, this makes it look completely different. It was different before anyone looked. He did not argue. I turned to the page near the bottom of the stack. This one was written in a shaky hand, the letters leaning hard to the right. I covered the private lines and left only the name and unit visible. Evelyn Price. Ethan stared at it. Missers, Price from the lobby? I nodded. The same woman sitting there when Linda stopped you? Yes. His eyes moved from Evelyn's name to the torn carrier slip still lying beside the folder. I watched the pieces start to connect in his face, one by one. The printed number, the handwritten correction, the way Missers. Price had lowered her eyes to the handles of her walker when Ron started talking. Ethan touched the edge of the paper. This says she gave you permission. It says she trusted me not to make her business everybody's business. That quieted him more than anger would have. He looked toward the apartment door, as if the lobby were on the other side of it instead of 2 floors below. And tonight, everyone just stood there. They saw what they thought they saw. No, he said. They saw what Linda said it was. He looked back at Evelyn's form, then at the torn slip. If Mrs. Price signed this? He asked. Why didn't the office know? The next morning, Ethan walked beside me to the mail area like he was trying not to look protective. I did not need protecting. I needed somebody to look at the paper before the story about me got larger than the truth. Tanya Willis came through the front doors at 10:17, carrying her mail tub against one hip and wearing the same tired focus I used to see in repairmen at the end of a long route. She saw me and slowed. Morning, Mr. Dalton. Morning, Tanya. Her eyes moved to Ethan, then to the gray folder under my arm. She did not ask in the lobby where everybody could hear. She nodded toward the little alcove by the mailboxes, away from the benches. That was the first kind thing anybody had done since Linda stopped me. Ethan took out the torn carrier slip and held it flat against the folder. Ma'am, we're not asking about anybody's private packages. We just need to know if this looks like a real mix-up. Tanya set her tub down on the mail table and looked at the slip without touching it. Her face changed just a little. I can't discuss names, contents, or full delivery details, she said. But I can tell you this building has had unit number confusion before. Ethan glanced at me. I stayed quiet. Tanya pointed near the torn edge, careful not to block the paper. When numbers look close, or when a locker entry gets corrected by hand, Things can land in the wrong place. It happens more than people think. So he wasn't imagining it, Ethan said. Tanya looked at him then, not sharply, but firmly enough. Your grandfather has reported mismatches to me before, calmly, politely, usually because he thought someone else was going to lose something. The words did not fix what happened in the lobby, but they put a floor under me. For 1 second, Ethan looked ashamed, and I hated that I was glad to see it. Tanya picked up her tub again. I can't verify every package from this slip out here. That has to go through the apartment office, and anything reviewed should have private details covered. Locker sheets? Ethan asked. If the office has them, yes. Redacted. Process only. She looked at me. That is the proper way to handle it. Proper way. I almost smiled at that. The proper way would have been nice before Linda said package thief in front of half the lobby. Tanya started toward the mailboxes, then paused. But I'll say this much, she added. That slip is consistent with the kind of misdelivery pattern I've seen here. Ethan looked from her to the office door. So if the office has the sheets, he said, why didn't anyone check them first? Linda did not invite us into her office right away. She stood behind the counter with one hand on the phone and the other on a stack of tenant complaint slips, looking at the torn carrier slip like it had become heavier overnight. Ethan kept his voice even. Tanya said the office should review the locker sheets, with private details covered. Linda's eyes flicked toward me. Tanya said that? She said it was the proper way, I told her. That word seemed to bother Linda more than anger would have. After a long breath, she unlocked the side door and waved us in. Nobody is looking at names, labels, contents, or anything personal. I want that clear. So do I said. Her office was narrow and too warm, with a printer humming in the corner and a bulletin board full of reminders corporate probably thought sounded friendly. Linda pulled up the package locker records on her computer, then printed several pages. Before she let either of us near them, she took a black marker and covered names, tracking numbers, and anything that belonged to a tenant's private life. Ethan watched her do it. I watched her hands. They were steady at first, then less steady when the same unit number patterns began showing up. Linda set the redacted sheets on the desk. This only shows locker assignments and correction notes. Nothing else. That is all we need, Ethan said. I did not sit. I stood beside the chair because sitting felt too much like waiting to be judged again. The first page showed a locker assigned under one number, then later marked corrected. The second showed the same kind of change. The third had a handwritten office note that matched one of the pairs in my folder. Linda looked at my unit number sheet, then back at her printout. Her face did not soften. Not yet. But something in it lost its certainty. These are old, she said. Old enough to matter? Ethan asked. She did not answer. Instead, she opened a drawer and pulled out a folder labeled only with the month. Inside were complaint forms, printed emails, and office notes with the private lines folded under. Linda read one, then another. I saw the moment she found the first complaint dated before any of my correction notes. Her thumb stopped moving across the paper. What is it? Ethan asked. Linda looked at the page, then at the torn slip lying on her desk. Her voice came out quieter. The complaint started before Art was helping anyone. Linda called Mr. Warren Ellis from the office phone, not her cell. I noticed that. People use the official phone when they want a thing to feel controlled. She kept her voice careful. Mr. Ellis, I have a resident here with a torn carrier slip and some redacted locker records. We're trying to understand whether this matches the delivery issues your office has seen at our building. She put the call on speaker only after asking if that was acceptable. A man's voice came through calm and low. I can speak generally about process and patterns. I cannot discuss private delivery contents or personal tenant information. That's understood, Ethan said quickly. Linda placed the torn carrier slip beside the redacted scan sheet summary, as if the papers had become witnesses and all of us were waiting for them to talk. Mr. Ellis asked Linda to read only the non-private parts. The visible correction mark, the torn edge location, and the type of locker mismatch noted by the office. She did it slowly, without names, without full numbers, without anything that belonged to a tenant's private life. There was a pause on the line. Then Mr. Ellis said, "That is consistent with a known misdelivery pattern we have seen in buildings with similar locker layouts." Linda closed her eyes for half a second. He went on. "A handwritten correction on a carrier slip does not prove theft. It usually means someone noticed a mismatch after the first entry or placement." I looked down at my hands. They were folded together on my knee, the same hands Linda had watched like they were doing something wrong. Ethan leaned forward. "So if someone found that slip and a package nearby, it could mean the package was misassigned?" "It could," Mr. Ellis said. "Again, I am not confirming a private delivery. I am saying the slip pattern is consistent with misdelivery correction." Linda picked up the complaint log from her desk. She did not open it this time. She only held it, like she already knew what was inside. "What should the building do when this happens?" she asked. "Use a written office process," Mr. Ellis said. "Residents should not be put in the middle. If someone is authorized to assist, the office should document that. Accusations should wait until records are checked." The room went very still, not because he had raised his voice. He hadn't. Because he had named the exact thing Linda had not done. When the call ended, Linda did not look at Ethan first. She looked at the torn carrier slip. Then she looked at me. For the first time since the lobby, she seemed less worried about missing packages and more worried about what she had taken from me. Ron Turner knocked on Linda's office door with 2 envelopes in his hand and suspicion still sitting on his face. He stopped when he saw me at the corner chair, Ethan beside the desk, and the redacted papers spread out where nobody passing by could read them. "Didn't mean to interrupt." Linda straightened the stack at once. "We're reviewing a package issue privately." "Ron." He looked at me, then at the gray folder in Ethan's hand. "Well, I hope somebody's asking the obvious question." Ethan's shoulders tightened. "What question is that?" Ron shifted his weight. "Why was Art always by the lockers in the first place?" The room went quiet again, but it was different from the lobby. Smaller, less cruel, still sharp. Linda did not answer quickly. I looked at Ron and saw a man trying to defend what he had said before he knew what he was defending. He was not a bad man. He was embarrassed, and embarrassment makes people reach for proof they were right. Ethan opened the gray folder. "There are permission forms," Ron frowned. "Permission for what?" "For limited help," Ethan said. "Only with misdelivered packages, only to the office shelf or the correct door. Nothing opened, nothing kept." Linda held up one hand. "No private details." She took the forms from Ethan and turned them so Ron could see only the blank heading and the general wording. Names were covered. Personal notes stayed hidden. Ron leaned closer but did not touch them. "These are real?" he asked. "They're in the office now," Linda said, "and some should have been in the office before." That cost her something to say. I looked down at my hands because I did not want Ron to see that I heard the difference in her voice. She was not defending herself now, not completely. Ethan slid my unit number correction notes beside the forms. These match the kind of mistakes Mr. Ellis described. Ron stared at the pencil marks, the arrows, the repeated pairs. For a man who liked having something to say, he went quiet for a long time. "So people asked you?" he said finally. I nodded. "Some did. And you didn't tell everybody?" "No, why not?" I looked at the covered names on the forms. "Because needing help with a package shouldn't become lobby gossip." Ron's face changed then, not dramatically, just enough. Linda lowered her eyes to the forms again, and I watched her see what she had missed before. The people most likely to lose a delivery were also the least likely to make a scene about it. The same neighbors who looked helpless in the lobby were the ones I had been trying not to expose. After Ron left, Linda closed the office door and stood with her back to it. For a while, nobody moved. The printer had stopped humming. The lobby noise was muffled, and the torn carrier slip lay on her desk like a small piece of paper that had somehow become too heavy to touch. Linda folded her hands in front of her. "Art, I owe you an apology." Ethan looked at me, but I kept my eyes on Linda. She said it carefully, not polished, not rehearsed. That helped some. "I was under pressure," she said. "That is not an excuse. I had complaints, corporate asking for updates, tenants angry at the desk every morning. I saw you with that package, and I reacted before I checked what I should have checked." I nodded once. Linda waited, maybe hoping I would tell her it was all right. I did not. She glanced through the glass wall toward the lobby. A few neighbors were passing the mailboxes, their voices low. The same place where she had stopped me was only a few steps away. "I can apologize to you here," she said. "Privately. Right now." "That would be easy," I said. Her face tightened, but she did not argue. Ethan shifted in his chair. I picked up the old package room procedure board from where Linda had leaned it against the cabinet. It was a cheap plastic sign with faded rules, too many words, and no real answer for what happened when a package landed in the wrong place. I held it in both hands. "This is what people trusted," I said. "And when it didn't work, they trusted the loudest explanation." Linda looked at the board, then at the complaint log on her desk. I set the board down gently. "You said it in the lobby." Her eyes lifted to mine. "So the repair can't stay in this room." For the first time, Linda looked less like a manager trying to solve a complaint and more like a person realizing where the damage had actually been done. She turned toward the wall beside the package shelf. Through the office window, I could see the old procedure board still hanging out there, crooked at one corner. Linda opened the door and walked into the lobby. She did not announce anything. She did not call people over. She simply reached up, unhooked the old board, and lifted it off the wall. The empty space it left behind looked larger than the sign had ever been. Linda came back from the office carrying a clean whiteboard, a stack of blank forms, and a roll of blue painter's tape. She did not ask me to stand beside her. She did not ask me to say anything. That mattered, because I had already spent enough time being looked at. She set everything on the small table under the mailboxes and started removing the old tape marks from the wall. The sound of it was small, but people noticed. Ron Turner stopped near the elevator. Mrs. Price sat on the bench with both hands folded over her walker handles. Two neighbors slowed by the package shelf, pretending to sort mail they had already sorted. Linda uncapped a marker and wrote across the top of the new board in careful block letters, "Package room procedure." Under it, she added the first rule, "Check office log before making accusations." She paused after writing that one. Nobody spoke. Then she wrote the next lines. "Misdelivered packages go to the office shelf. Authorized help must be documented. No package labels are to be read aloud, and private tenant information stays private." Ethan stood near the office door with his hands in his pockets. He was watching Linda, but every few seconds his eyes moved to me. Linda took a small card from behind the desk and walked to the package room keypad. "Your access was paused yesterday," she said, keeping her voice steady enough for the lobby to hear. "I restored it." She held the card out to me. I looked at it before I took it. It was just plastic, but in that moment, it weighed more than the package Linda had taken from under my arm. "Thank you," I said. Linda nodded once. Her face was tired, but not defensive anymore. She taped a corrected unit number reference beside the procedure board, the numbers large enough to guide people but not tied to names, labels, or private deliveries. Then she turned toward the lobby. "Mr. Dalton noticed a pattern we should have reviewed sooner," she said. "The office has updated the procedure so residents are not put in the middle of a broken system. That was not a speech." It was almost too plain, but it was plain in the right direction. Ron looked down at his shoes. "Mrs." Price lifted her chin just a little. The woman from the fourth floor, the one with the grocery bags, folded her mail against her chest and said nothing at all. Linda stepped away from the board and looked at me. "Art," she said, "would you inspect this before we call it done?" The lobby went quiet for a different reason. I walked to the board slowly, the restored access card in my hand, wondering whether a corrected sign could really carry what people had put on my name. I stood in front of the new procedure board with the restored access card resting in my palm. The words were plain. That was what made them useful. Check the office log first. Keep private information private. Use the written form. Do not accuse a resident in public before the record is reviewed. I read every line twice. Linda waited beside the package shelf, marker still in her hand. She did not rush me. She did not try to fill the silence with another apology. Finally, I tapped one line with my finger. This one needs to say the office carries the responsibility. Linda looked at it, then nodded. You're right. She crossed out the softer wording and rewrote it while the lobby watched. Ethan came up beside me with the unit number reference sheet. Grandpa, these two should be farther apart. They look too close from the bench. I glanced at him. He was not saying it to sound helpful. He was doing the work. Move that one down, I said. He did. For the next 20 minutes, Ethan and Linda relabeled the reference sheet while I checked the spacing. Ron Turner stood nearby without making comments. Missers. Price sat on the bench, her eyes moving from the board to me and back again. When Linda finished, she picked up the gray office folder and slid the torn carrier slip into the inside pocket. Not on the wall, not on display, not as proof for neighbors to stare at. Just kept where it belonged. I'll keep this with the procedure file, she said. That's enough, I told her. Her eyes met mine. Art, I am sorry. I nodded once. I hear you. It was not forgiveness, not yet. But it was not a closed door either. Ethan walked me back toward the package shelf after the lobby thinned out. He kept his voice low. I should have asked differently. Yes, I said. He swallowed. I'm sorry. I looked at my grandson, at the worry still sitting in his face. Next time, start with what you know about me before you start with what people said about me. He nodded, and this time he did not answer too fast. Before we left, Missers. Price's package was placed on the office shelf under the new rule, logged without names being spoken aloud. Linda checked the board, checked the log, and carried it the proper way. I watched, then stepped back. That was the part I wanted most. Not praise, not a speech, not everybody saying they had been wrong. Just a system that no longer needed an old man to quietly hold it together. The last thing I saw before the elevator doors closed was the corrected procedure board hanging straight beside the package shelf, with Ethan smoothing one corner of the reference sheet until it stayed flat.